Not so subliminals. A little concept that may have been stumbled upon accidentally, though inspired by an example. It's interesting that the simple reframing of something can put things into a completely different perspective. Now, if I were to say that I may be starting a whole new movement, at least in the framing, the titles, the referencing, how people present their content, their audio content, or at least the audio that goes along with any content, whether it be some podcast or a video, for example. If it's done in this way and it's framed like this, then maybe I'm helping to support and further a movement in audio production. And it's simply this. Earlier today, I sat at a cafe called Maggie's Favorite because I had to leave my car to have the axles replaced. And I walked 30 minutes. I thought I was going to go further. But thankfully I didn't, because I prefer independent coffee shops to the big ones, the major coffee shops. I like the atmosphere to study. I don't go there to drink coffee. I don't go there to those places for food. I patronize them by purchasing their products as a gesture to say thank you for letting me sit here and talk to myself. And so, in talking to myself is something I've realized I've been doing for a long time, especially since my 6th grade math and science teacher, Mr. Muniz, from IS 116 in the Bronx, New York, caught me talking to myself one day, and he inspired me. Now, whether he was telling me that in the hopes that it would help steer me on a better path, that he didn't want to scare me, that he didn't want people to bully me any further than they already would for me being a skinny little band geek. He told me that people who talk to themselves are intelligent, they're creative, and they may even be genius. Thank you, Mr. Muniz. And so in the spirit of that, as I was talking to myself at the cafe and recording it, just in case anybody else would want to hear what comes out of my brain as best as it can, falling out of my face, I record these things because that's a thing that people do. We humans will record stuff and we say, hey, look at me. I made this. It's just me. Look at it. I might have something important to say. I might have something inspiring to say. I might have something that's simply entertaining. And it's all good. And so me talking to myself, I know that I was going to put that video recording on YouTube. And I know from experience, being at cafes that play music in the background, that when YouTube's artificial intelligence picks up on the music from the background, sometimes it restricts those videos in different ways. It could either block it completely from being shown in certain locations because of the copyright. It could basically have somebody else monetizing that video because of it. It could simply put a copyright notice on the video or something. I don't know how it works exactly. But there are responses to that. And so my workaround was to take one of my binaural beats. It was made for demi-cerebral neurophasing, or demi-phase for short. And it was the love frequency, 528 hertz, right next to 528.528, to give it a 0.528 oscillation. And I put that in the background of the video in order to drown out the copyrighted material. And so far as I can tell, from looking at the video going live on YouTube, there's no copyright notice on it, which is good. I was successful. However, the result of that is my voice may be buried in the sound of the binaural beats. And some people might say, well, I really can't hear what you're saying. I don't understand. And I've seen complaints about this on videos and things like that before. People saying, oh, the music, is so loud, I can't really get the message. And valid if, you really want to hear what the speaker is saying. But I also know from just popular media and from being a clinical hypnotist that there are things called subliminal messages. Sometimes you bury the suggestions in the ambient and other sounds. And then there's also the experience I had of listening to musical productions from groups like Lemon Jelly and certain other groups that my friend Amit Sharabi introduced me to when we used to sit in his apartment drinking tea for hours on end. That sometimes in the background of the beats you would hear some philosopher or some other spoken word from a previous recording that was a speech or a talk of inspiration of some kind, a sermon even. And it was buried in the music. Sometimes you could understand and hear what was being said, but it was more subliminal than it was the forefront of the music. And so it is in that spirit that I'm commencing full-on creating these not so subliminal recordings. These NSSRs, which they'll probably find their way into an acronym that has those letters in it. And that's fun because I have a lot of music and a lot of instrumentals that I could just talk the full length of them and put one back to back to back, depending on what I'm talking about or how long I talk. And I could structure it either way. I could structure it that I decide to only speak as long as the recording is, or I could line up various different recordings depending on how long it is I've decided to talk. And make the music just as audible as my voice, so that the voice is not clear but just becomes part of the background.